I met a gypsy.
I was getting deep. Yeah, it's just more personal bullshit. Anyway, my father and he was my best friend. He was the one that got me into this stuff. He was literally the guy that I would tell him my deepest, darkest secrets to. And motorcycle racing made us super fucking tight. But then it also, once it became a job, it kind of ruined us, because then it turned into, oh, you're not trying fucking hard enough. And then it's like, well, you're not making sure the bike's good enough. And him and I we would spend countless hours in the vehicle driving to the races, 18 hours, 24 hours here. And my dad had a smoking and drinking problem. So trying to be a professional athlete, it was difficult, because I'd be like, Dad, those things are cancer stick, stop it. And it was, anyway, training for Lakewood. I get off the track and I notice my dad's eyes are like really orange. And I'm like, what the fuck, Dad? And my dad was a very like, don't go to the doctor, like only weak people get cancer. Like, it's so mental, people. It's almost that saying of what happens to, if there's a sad dog, he might die just because, he's got no purpose, no reason to live. My dad was a very spiritual person. Anyway, I was like, Dad, there's something fucking wrong with you. And he was like, he knew it. He knew it in his soul. When he looked at me, he was going, okay, yeah, there is something not good. And this was kind of going back in time here. This is 5 years after I had that conversation with Donnie, and I was over it, and being completely transparent, because I'm just going to be honest and tell everybody my thoughts at the time, and people can judge me as much as they want, because everyone has their own right to judge. So I was worried about that first and foremost, but in the back of my head, I was going, oh shit, if my dad is out of the picture, I can have full control over my racing, because I didn't have the heart to tell him that I wanted to do things differently. And that was the evil inside of me. That was like, I saw, it's bad to, I don't mean to talk negative about my father, because we shared something very special. And anyway, moving forward, my dad had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and he was given 3 months to live. And him and I were in a very bad place because of the motorcycles, where we had this crazy cycle of blaming each other of what was wrong. And it gone on for so long that it was difficult. It came into my marriage with my wife. It became a problem. And sorry, Jase, I don't even know why I'm talking about this, and I'm trying to get my thoughts in here.
It's all good, man.
So this was like at the end of my career. I'm 26 years old. It's 2016. I just got married, and I find out, my mechanic, and my father, and around about, my best friend, but we're struggling, and I'm sitting having things like thinking that it's just a little bit longer, and then I can have full control over my racing program and things that I wanted to do. And I remember telling my dad eventually, because the dude was a stubborn fucker. You either hated him or you loved him. And he made it. They gave him 3 months to live. The dude made it almost 3 years. And I remember one of the conversations is I told my dad, I said, Dad, I don't want you to come to the Nationals with me anymore. I want to do it on my own. And it broke his heart. And in a roundabout way, I kind of feel like the only reason why he was hanging on so long is because he wanted to make sure that it was okay. Because after he passed, not after he passed, after he passed, my wife told me stories of him talking with just her and him, saying that they had conversations about asking me to quit because they were constantly just seeing me get injured. And they never told me that because, you know, my dad was the same as me. He didn't want to see me give up. And anyway, it was my wife. Dude, I'm so sorry, Jase. I cannot. This is such a fucked up thing in my life that I don't even. Those nationals was the worst time I ever had on a dirt bike, because it was proven to me that I couldn't fucking do it without them, and that I wasn't enough, and my head was just in a bad place. Every national that I went to, I didn't fucking photos, and I had my dad in the background kind of telling me, see, you can't do it without me. You can't do it without me. And it was too much that I just was over it, and I was ready to quit. And my dad and I had a big falling out, and this is, you know, my dad is dying, and I'm like, let's cut ties. You know, we don't like each other. This is it. And it was my wife that came to me at the end of 2016. Oh my God. My wife came to me and was like, Johnny,
if it's too much, you don't have to keep talking about it.
It's my wife ended up.
It's cool to listen, you know.
Okay. Anyway, it was my wife is the one that ended up kind of saving things together. She was like, your dad is dying, Johnny. You guys were friends for so long. You need to make amends. And so for about a month, I went over to my dad's house every day, and we watched races, and we just talk about life and everything in general. And I will never forget that time that I had with him in that month. And then finally it was a time when I went over the last time, and he was so worried about not leaving us with anything because, you know, we were broke. He was broke. I was in my 20s. I was 26 at the time. I was like, I'm going to be okay. But he was worried about what he was going to give to Mom. And, you know, I told him, I'm like, Dad, it's going to be all okay. Because he was a big fan of it's all going to work out. That was his big saying, is it's all going to work out. And I never understood that, because I hated that saying, because when somebody tells you it's all going to work out, no, it's not. It's not going to all work out. You're going to have to do A, B, C, D, or whatever to make it work out. You know, it's the same thing that I hate going to church and hearing that, you know, God saved me. It was God that did this. And I don't believe that, because I believe it's your individual, it's you sides to make it work out. And after he passed, I finally realized that saying is, you're going to find a way, is essentially it. You're going to find a way to make it work out. But at the time, I just told him, Dad, it's all going to work out. And he pretty much he let go. And I came over in the next day, and he was dying, and I was lucky enough to be there and have him out of his chair and just hold on to him and kind of watch him kind of choke to death in a weird way. And just and Jase, I don't know where this is going, what I'm trying to say. It's coming very
well. It makes sense.
Scattered.
It makes sense that this is. It's funny, man. Like on the podcast, like there's a lot of times where I think that even for myself, you know, like what this is just like a stream of consciousness. Like we're putting out like the first draft of our thoughts, and I don't know what word is going to finish this sentence. You know what I mean? It's just coming out, and I think, you know, that's sort of what you're in the process of doing now. And I think really, I mean, there's some underlying stuff that is, around like you personally and racing and motorcycles. And I think that, what this is like context, and, you're sharing your experiences of what you've been through, and I guess how it's left, the scar it's left on you when it comes to racing. I mean, dude, I had a period of like 8 years where I didn't ride a motorcycle. Like 7 years. I watched Andrew McFarlane die right in front of me. Like, that dude's one of the fucking best guys I've ever seen ride a motocross bike. I was there filming him on the weekend in Broadford, and he was on a fucking heater, dude. Like, he was qualifying and he was putting down a heater lap, and he went over the bars on like this small tabletop deal, and I just watched the guy die. Like, he was a friend of mine. I was there with him just, hours before he picked me up from the airport, and we drove to the track together. And fast forward, and I'm watching this dude fucking gasping for air, dying. And that shit really fucked me up. Like, I didn't ride for 8 years. I tried to ride, and at this point, like, riding and racing was all I gave a fuck about. Like, very, very one-dimensional. And I was filming, but I was still loved riding, like, I'd just do everything. I'd drop work to ride. Like, that was my shit. And seeing him die completely fucked up for me. And, there was so much trauma. I looked at a bike. It's like what you're explaining about how when you, like, look at your bike, you see all these, like, gnarly things, And to me, when I looked at a bike, I saw my friend dead on the ground. And it took that from me. You know what I mean? Like, that moment took all the love, all the fun, all the great memories I'd ever had racing, and it was gone. And I remember I tried to race. I went to a start line, and I did practice, and the whole time I was riding, I was like, I literally was riding around this track going, I just don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Like, it was fucking gnarly, dude. It was one of the gnarliest days of my whole life. And I went to the start line, and I picked a gate away from everybody. Like, a gate you'd never fucking start at in a million years if you actually wanted to get a good start. And I was like, no one to the left, no one to the right. And I stayed there. And then when the gate dropped, I stayed at the gate, and I was just crying in my helmet. And then my dad walked up to me, and I remember just literally, I got off my bike, and I just gave it to my dad at the start line. I was like, I'm fucking done. I can't do this shit. And I just didn't ride. I just packed it in. And it was like 8 years, dude, where that was a huge fucking scar. And every time this is the same thing, like what you said about how you look at that 450 and you just see pain and you see all this shit. But at some point, man, like, my life got better as a result of dropping that baggage. Like, I never thought I'd be able to enjoy a motorcycle again. And I mean, I've had a ton of injuries, and it's like, it's a brutal sport. Like, just on any level that you play this game, it's a fucking gnarly game. But now, like, as a guy that I thought I would never race again, now I fucking love my bike. I love all my bikes. I love the feeling. I love the travel. I love that I get to go with my friends. Like, that. There's so much more that it could give you. And it's like, of course, all of these fucked up things can happen as a result of being on the motorcycle. But, man, you can fucking get hit by a car. You can leave this interview and some fuckwit could have drunk a fifth of vodka and run a red light in Murrieta and fucking clean you out. So it's just like, that's the game that we fucking play, dude. Like, we play a fucked up game just by being alive. Just by being alive, we could be dead at any minute. And I don't know, man. For me, it's like, I think that, given all of the shit that you've been through, I think that you kind of like owe it to yourself to try and put some of this shit down, Like, it's a heavy load to carry. And it's like, it's obvious that you love the sport, bro. It's obvious that you fucking love this shit because you make great content around the sport, and you're like super involved, and you care about the conversations that get started. And it's like, I really just think that you got to change the goalposts a little bit. And I think that, dude, get a super fun, easy bike to ride, put your dad's old race number on it. Like, that's what I did. Like, I literally, all my bikes now have my dad's race number. I'm like, I don't give a fuck what number. Like, I don't have any personal identity around this. Like, I don't give a fuck now. I want to run my dad's number because it's like, cool, he doesn't get to race anymore. So it's like, I'll just run my dad's number. It's a 45. Anyone ever ask me, it's my dad's number, So it's like, I don't know, dude, take a bit of this shit back for yourself. Like, you've got the fucking cash to do it. Just go and enjoy it. Like, drop the pressure on yourself. Like, who gives a fuck? Go and be the slowest at a track and just, like, do it for the right reason, Like, I don't know, man. Like, that's just my personal thought. You don't have to do a moto. You don't have to go to a track. You don't have to do a triple. Like, go and ride a fucking grass track around some fucking safety cones with your friends, like a couple of cool dudes, and drink some beers. Like, I don't know. I just think that you could change the narrative, man. Like, you could, because for me, so I guess in my like personal example with the Andrew thing, like, I had to take it back. I didn't want to be a dude that looked at a bike as just this thing that could kill me and just ruin my, all this shit. Like, I've got a lot of hours invested in this shit. And, like, it's one thing. And I'm going to let that one event completely ruin something that I've, loved my whole life. And it's like, I've got so much enjoyment out of it now. And, I mean, yeah, I guess I literally just love motocross, and not motocross, but just motorcycling more than I ever have in my life. And that's come post looking at a bike with the same kind of hatred that I think you have, for different reasons, albeit, but.
Thank you, Jase. Thank you. I don't have a whole lot of good people around me, and my dad was, maybe I'm feeling as if I'm blaming the sport because of, like, it's almost like it killed my dad, but it didn't. In a roundabout way, it had nothing to do with it, but I'm holding on to something, and him and I would talk about just all sorts of life and shit in general, and I wish so much that my dad was around to see the kind of impact that I've made on other people's life when it came to racing. And then with having my daughter be born just a month ago, to be able to share good with my father, and I can't, I never got that opportunity. And me looking at that motorcycle is just bringing back, I'm blaming that fucking bike for ruining the best fucking relationship I had in my life with somebody that knew me 150% and was behind me no matter what. And yeah, I guess I'm a different time where you before, and I am ready to quit the noise, and I don't know why I continue to post some shit that I do, and why I'm still trying to be involved in this so small circle of motorcycle, because I don't know if I'm contributing anything that's healthy to anything, and I'm tired of the negativity.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.